India exported all its 30-year-old scrap parts to Pakistan. This is because Indians believe that even when their products are beyond repair, they are still among the best in the world. This time, the part that arrived was a broken rear axle. Because the breakage was quite severe, the car owner was prepared to sell it as scrap metal. However, having heard that Pakistani mechanics were very skilled at repairing cars, he sold the broken rear axle to Pakistan for 2,000 rupees. When the rear axle arrived, the Pakistani mechanics were overjoyed because they not only could repair it, but they also repaired it to a very high standard. Now, let's see how the mechanic repaired this rear axle. The mechanic first took the newly purchased rear axle to the repair shop, and then used a machine to fix it in place, which facilitates the repair. After fixing the rear axle, the mechanic inspected it again to check the extent of the damage, which would help him better formulate a repair plan. After a preliminary inspection, it was found that the damage to this rear axle was quite significant. After all, it's a 30-year-old product, making repairs rather difficult. Because this rear axle had been repaired several times before, and there were steel plates left over from previous repairs, the mechanic first used a high current to weld away the existing steel plates. This made it easier to repair the existing cracks. After welding away the steel plates, we can now examine the crack. The crack is circular, surrounding the bridge shell, likely a remnant from the last repair. After identifying the area to be repaired, the technician brushed away the ash to make welding easier. After brushing, a torch was used to soften any remaining hard weld slag, allowing for its removal. Once the weld was finished, the crack was broken up with a metal hammer, making the welding process more efficient. After the initial welding was done, the foreman used an electric welder to perform preliminary welding on the crack. After 2 welds, he continued to hammer it with an iron awl for better results. After hammering, the foreman began the second round of welding. After the second round of welding, the foreman used a hammer to scrape off the weld slag, as it consisted of loose weld slag and needed to be prevented from accumulating too much. Otherwise, it would affect the quality of the weld. After scraping off the weld, the craftsman moved on to the second crack. This crack was treated in the same way. First, he used a hammer to try and widen the crack. Then he used an electric welder to weld it together. After the first weld was complete, he used a hammer to finish the weld, then used a grinding wheel to smooth out any protruding weld slag until it felt smooth to the touch. After grinding down the welded area, the craftsman measured the crack's dimensions with a ruler. Because the crack was only simply welded and not very strong, he added a steel plate to ensure it met quality standards. After confirming the dimensions, he poured a bucket of cold water into the steel plate to cool the welded area. Once cooled, he brought out another steel plate to reinforce the crack. He placed it in place, measured it again, and marked the crack's dimensions. After marking the steel plate, use tools to fix it in place, then use a cutting machine to cut it according to the markings. After cutting, use a hammer to straighten it slightly, then take it to a hydraulic press to shape it. The shape is formed by pressing it from the middle, pressing it into a vertical shape. After the shape of the steel plate is determined, take it to the rear axle for comparison and then see how to repair the crack. After confirmation, the mechanic first uses electric welding to weld one end of it. After the initial stitching, the steel plate was softened using a torch. Once softened, the plate was then hammered along the crack. Simultaneously, several welds were applied to ensure the plate was more stable. After the entire steel plate was attached, it was welded a few more times to further secure it. The first crack was now complete. The technician then used a grinding wheel welding machine to smooth out the welds before proceeding to install the steel plate for the second crack. This time was the same. First, they used an electric welder to weld one end, then used a blowtorch to soften the steel plate. After softening, they used a hammer to slowly press the steel plate together. In one go, their second crack was repaired. Next, the mechanic used the electric welder to weld together any areas that weren't properly sealed. After welding the crack, they used a hammer to scrape off the weld, and then began the next step. This step was actually the final one, grinding down the welded area. After grinding down the weld, the rear axle repair was complete. How about that? The quality seems pretty good.